Welcome to the Edge of Innovation with InSource, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling ride through the world of digital transformation. Join us as we dive into the latest trends, cutting-edge technologies, and game-changing strategies that are revolutionizing manufacturing and industrial settings. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just curious about the future of industrial innovation, we've got something for everyone. In this episode, InSource's Chris Lewis connects with our partners at Timeseer to discuss how their innovative solutions enable teams and leaders to trust their data to ensure that it is accurate and actionable. Let's listen in.
Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Chris Lewis. I am the VP of Business Development here at InSource Solutions Group. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic that's quickly becoming mission critical in industrial operations, and that's data integrity. Industrial organizations are generating more data than ever before, from vision systems to sensors, IoT devices, and smart meters. But more data doesn't automatically mean better decisions. In many cases, it introduces more complexity, more risk, and more of an opportunity for things to go wrong, quite frankly. So today, we're really excited to unpack why data integrity is becoming so important, what challenges organizations are facing, and how they can get ahead of those challenges by partnering with Timeseer AI. I am really excited to be joined by Niels Verheyen and Katie Gates from Timeseer, who work closely with customers, navigating these challenges each and every day to ultimately build a data ecosystem to drive change for their organizations. It's great to be with the both of you. Thanks for joining. Let's get started with quick introductions. Katie, do you want to go first, and then I'll go over to Niels?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. I'm Katie Gates. I'm a customer success manager at Timeseer. In my career started in operations for power generation, and then I dove into data analytics and helped customers find insights from their data using self-service analytics, which is really where I came to recognize the challenge of data quality, for those insights and reports. So happy to be part of the solution here at Timeseer.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining. We're excited to hear your perspective on these topics. Niels, how about yourself? Quick background, quick intro.
Yes, thanks, Chris. So I'm Niels Verheyen, one of the co-founders of Timeseer, and my responsibility is around everything that has to do around go-to-market. And I have a long background in this industry where I started in my early career in selling SCADA systems, and I saw the whole upcoming of the data historians first, when we started storing a lot more data that you talked about in your introduction, and all the way up to today where analytics and AI and MLOps become more and more important and become the name of the game in terms of what it is. So that's my background, electrical engineer from background, but went into sales rather quickly after I finished the school.
Awesome. We're excited to hear your perspective as well. So I'll get us kicked off around the origin of Timeseer and the fundamental problem that you guys solve in the marketplace. So my first question is for you, Niels. What problem were you trying to solve when you and the team founded Timeseer?
Yes, that's obviously a very important one when you start a company. The company's name is Timeseer. That almost spells time series. That tells you a little bit of the data type that we focus on. It's really a little bit sharper, actually. It is really sensor data and OT data where our hearts are in terms of the background of our team. Most of the founders are also founders of a company called Trendminer that we founded about 15 years ago with a different goal, but on the same data. And the problem that we're solving is indeed around data integrity and data quality, which is interestingly enough, it's not a new topic. I mean, even early 90s on, let's say, the pre-Aviva worlds that we see today on those conferences, already a lot of talks around data quality was there. However, in our vision, that didn't have much of an impact back then. We started this company 5 years ago because there's two main reasons why we think that impact is really there now. One is that we discussed earlier a little bit as well, is the upcoming of technology. That means we have automated ways of using that data. Again, a lot of buzzwords, but AI, ML, MLOps, advanced analytics are there that in an automated way use that data to build any kind of models of reports and dashboards for our clients. And that means, to put it very simple, garbage in is garbage out. So we are much more impacted by that issue. Secondly, we also have a new generation coming up that is now going to control our plants. And other than my generation, where is that generation is used to rely on data completely. I always give this example. My bonus son trusts ChatGPT blindly without even thinking where that data comes from, so on. And going forward, if we have that generation manage our plants and use data, then we need to make sure that the data that they use is indeed trustworthy, because they will not have the knowledge anymore to really quickly understand, like the subject matter experts of the old days knew exactly what was going on in the plant by looking at the data and know what was on. The new generation will blindly trust on that data. And that means we need, let's say, a data trust layer. We need something that manages that data trust for us so that we can actually rely on that data and get all the benefits that we can from it.
That's awesome. So in terms of the data quality initiative that's been around for years, that's not new. And perhaps the newer challenge that we face, and that's serving the digital natives or the next generation of plant managers and engineering managers. You guys are uniquely positioned to help enable and, quite frankly, fix both of those key issues. Very exciting. Katie, I'm going to go over to you. How often do you see these issues in the marketplace? You work with customers day in and day out. Is this something that you're frequently seeing in the marketplace?
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to engineers that say, when they first entered their first job in a plant, that they were taught that sensors lied to them, right? To always question what they're seeing in the data. And often this means, they're going out and checking the analog sensors in the field. And that can turn an analysis that should take 1 hour into a day-long venture as they go and verify all the data that they're feeding into that. And I talked to another engineer who, saw data that didn't look quite right and had to, venture out into the Canadian tundra to give it a good smack, get it unfrozen, so we want to enable those engineers to verify that data in a much easier way, so that they can trust it and that they're not assuming it's always lying to them.
Really great point, right? Data is a commodity that gets more and more valuable the more that you use it. I believe that was a quote from Dr. Pat Kennedy. And that data needs to be right for the commodity to operate in that fashion. So the trust of that data is obviously imperative. Niels, question for you, sir. Industrial organizations are flushed with data, more data than they've ever had at their disposal. What practical challenges are you seeing with, quote unquote, this explosion of time series data or operations data that we now have at our disposal? What practical issues are you seeing out there in the real world?
Yeah, and thank you, Chris. That's a very good point indeed. We have seen it probably in the last 20 years, a huge upcome of technology around storing data and around sensors mainly. So sensors became available, they became accessible in terms of budgets, and we have seen an explosion of that, which the first issue was that companies focused on was to store as much data as they could. I remember from my early days when I was selling data historians that basically our whole pitch was, why don't you just store all the data and you will figure out later what to do with it. And that's what we really did for a good number of years. And then it lacked technology to actually be able to use that data to any kind of benefit. And that's when the recent, let's say, 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, that technology is coming up. And then practically indeed the topic that we address becomes apparent, meaning the data quality and data integrity, because all of a sudden we have technology that can run across thousands and 10,000s and millions of measurements and find patterns for as a simple example in there. And then the data quality needs pops up as the most practical way to do it. So I guess in that order, indeed, huge upcoming of sensors, and we started measuring everything we could and storing all that data. Then upcoming of technology to be able to use that, and that's driving, if you will, the impact of data quality. And that's also for a good part why we have the .ai in our name. That's not only because we use AI, which we do, but also because AI is really a driver of why we need to look at data as in words of trust and integrity, rather than how we did it in the early days, where we just blindly, and Katie just commented on that, where we blindly trust whatever a sensor would tell us. And yeah, we know all too well from our experience and from feedback from our customers how much sensors can lie to you in that in many ways.
Really great point. I started my career in the machine vision space, and oftentimes you would walk the factory floor, recalibrate, reprogram your machine vision systems, your intelligent sensors, and companies were making a tremendous amount of investments in the early 2000s and beyond to architect their facility with these intelligent devices. And it's almost a catch-22. You make this investment for these devices that should be able to be trusted, and if they can't, it leaves you in a difficult position. So let's shift maybe to the practicality of the day in the life of a Timeseer user. And Katie, this question's for you. For customers that are using Timeseer, what actually takes place that allows for data to scale, but data to scale in a manner that is digitally safe or of sound data integrity? What does Timeseer actually do to ensure data quality and data integrity?
Yeah, great question. So like we've talked about, the scale of which data is available makes it almost impossible to monitor when a sensor is going out of calibration or if a network connection has dropped. And so what Timeseer does is automatically and in near real time checks for those exact instances. And so that allows users then to be more proactive about first addressing the root cause, right? We can notify the PI admin, right, to say maybe the interface is down because we see data has been gapped, or an INC engineer and tell them that, these sensors need to take priority in the calibration workflow. But then you can go, while you wait maybe for the root issue to be fixed, actually mitigate the issue through data cleansing. And we make a number of strategies available for you to do that in a way that makes sense to the way that you're using the data. And you can do that manually, but you can also set up to do it automatically. Because again, manual data cleaning, which is often how engineers and data scientists are approaching the problem now, it is very time intensive. And so we aim to, at Timeseer, take on that workload.
That's a remarkable impact you guys are having on industrial organizations. And maybe let's pick a certain use case. How much time am I saving as a quality engineer, as a data scientist, as a plant manager, as a corporate engineer? How much time am I saving leveraging Timeseer? Katie, how about you take that one? Is it I'm saving a couple hours a day? Is it I'm saving thousands of hours a year? Help me understand the amount of time I would be saving by investing in Timeseer for my data operations strategy.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, data scientists can spend right up to 80% of their time just creating data sets. So if that's the case, we can cut that by up to 90%, doing automated data cleansing in Timeseer. So whatever that equates to, right? It's hours, it's days of your week saved.
Tremendous impact. That's awesome. Niels, question for you. So there's a few use cases that really stand out to me, largely around one industry that's near and dear to our hearts here at InSource Solutions Group, and that's the water wastewater industry, where smart meters are not a nice to have technology anymore. They're a need to have technology, and it helps our customers deliver water in a way that's both safe and efficient. So I remember when smart meters were just hitting the marketplace, and a water wastewater organization maybe had a handful of smart meters out there in their ecosystem. Now there's thousands. So you've referenced in the past helping utilities manage, in some cases, thousands of smart meters. How does that work, and maybe how could that help the water wastewater industry get to the next level?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I actually want to add to that, Chris, that in terms of smart meters, we probably talk more about millions than anything else. And think about literally every household has one nowadays, usually in front of your house, in that little box in the ground. So it's a very important need. And I want to add to you said we want safe and efficient drink water, for example. This is definitely true. But also everybody likes to get the right bill, so that we don't overpay. We pay the actual amount that we have consumed, and that's one of the key use cases around smart meters, that we need to check to make sure that what that reading is saying actually makes sense and is correct, so everybody gets the right billing. One of the main use cases that we do on smart meters. And then think about the sheer scale let's say it's 1 million, let's say it's 2 million, there's actually going to be probably more like 100 million smart meters in the ground in the US that supply all the drink water to both companies and individuals and households there. It's simply impossible to have any kind of person or manual process in place to look at that data, and that's where software come in and where our software comes in. I always like to refer to it, the software needs to do the heavy lifting. That's why we build software, and that's what we try to do, to be able to scale across those kinds of metrics where we, let's say, where we really shine, where we really add the value, because it's simply impossible to do it in any kind of manual way.
That's a tremendous challenge to have to calibrate and consolidate millions of smart meters. And for several organizations, especially in the utility space, oftentimes they're very lean from a people perspective. So having enough individuals to go out and tackle those challenges oftentimes is overwhelming. Hence the reason why you can leverage a partner like Timeseer to do it intelligently with AI. That's really, really cool. Katie, help me understand what oftentimes breaks first. So say you're a utility organization and you have millions of smart meters out there in the field. What often breaks first that requires a ton of manual data entry or recalibration? What oftentimes breaks first that could often be resolved by implementing Timeseer? What could be mitigated?
Great question. So, when you think about the data that's coming from those IoT sensors, it's being made available in a lot of different applications, right? And at the ground level, that's for operational decisions. But then as you go out to the process engineers and the business, right, those are in dashboards, those are in invoices. So I think, right, the main risk that we at Timeseer are mitigating is that the data is not available or is incorrect, I think is the worst case scenario, because then you're making capital decisions, operational decisions on inaccurate data. Did I address the question, or what breaks first in terms of trying to scale that out? Was that more where you were going with that?
Yes, that highlights a great point. Oftentimes you can think of it in a very discrete way where my water bill is too high or too low. However, you don't realize the operational impacts for process engineers not having the right data to run their shift handover meetings, to help set up the facility for success long term, right? So often it's easy to conclude around the simple issues that we fix with Timeseer. That's, hey, my bill for water this month is too high or too low, but the operational impact is equally as profound as some of the more obvious issues that we solve with Timeseer. Awesome stuff. Let's dig into the consequences of untrusted data. Niels, this one's for you. In your experience, prior to deploying a strategy built on Timeseer, how often do organizations discover data issues and reporting issues that are built on top of bad data? Is that frequent in your experience? And if so, talk to us a little bit about some examples.
Yes, well, it's actually extremely frequent. I have no problem saying that it's probably every hour in an organization when they run in operations. The challenge for us was a little bit that it's not always labeled as a data quality problem, but it usually is. So that means something goes wrong, and then something else gets blamed for it after a root cause analysis and so on. And people simply don't realize that the actual root cause of the challenge there lies with a sensor that actually was off or was broken or gave a wrong value or an outlier of some sort. And that made it, honestly, in the early days of Timeseer a little bit hard, to pitch our product and our solution there, because we had to go look and we really had to show clients to that this was actually linked to data quality. And we have developed also a product vulnerability assessment to help clients with that. From those assessments, we can easily say that these things happen pretty much every hour. But think about it, you as Install Solution Group, you guys provide a range of fantastic technologies, dashboards, models, and so on to it. How many users today are served from that? Well, then add the data quality problems to it, and then multiplies just by how much problems you have and how much spots that you're actually using this data, and that tells you how frequent this actually happens. So the impact is huge. If you look at market analysts, they aim this at least 10 to 15% in terms of cost that our saving is there. And organizations are slowly beginning to realize that data quality is really the name of the game and really the foundation of everything else before you should even try to implement all kinds of advanced things to get, let's say, the maximum benefit out of the technology. And added to that, Katie commented on that as well, just the sheer amount of manual hours spent on data validation, that adds a lot to it as well. And that's also something that we had to show customers, like just how many people actually do data validation. It's really a verb. It's really an activity that people do on a daily basis, and they just don't realize they're validating data. But they look at a dashboard and they think, that looks off. Katie mentioned it. They call the PI admin, or they call you guys because you do these services for clients. And then you go look, and then somebody at some point will say, well, a sensor was off, but nobody then realizes anymore that it was actually data quality, and that's where it starts. Starts by monitoring your fleet of sensors for the data quality, so you early on know, and you become, in a way, you become from reactive to proactive. So we're not going to wait until the problem hits. We're going to try to detect it early on, fix it before it ends up in the dashboard, in a model, or in some kind of analytics technology.
That's remarkable, and quite frankly, needed for any data operation strategy. In many cases, we argue whether or not Timeseer is a precursor to a data operation strategy, or is it a follow-on to a data operation strategy? And in my opinion, it's a necessity prior to a sound data operation strategy. So very, very, very cool to hear that feedback from you, Niels.
Yeah,
Katie, I want to dig in. Oh, go ahead, Niels.
Add a little bit to that, to Chris, because that's also where our partnership comes in. Why that's so important is that clients need to understand what the possibilities of data is. And that's, to me, really what you guys bring to the market. You show your clients what's possible with data. And once you start imagining that and you start thinking about things you can do with data, then we come in. Because to be honest, like I said earlier in my introduction, 20 years ago when we were hardly using the data quality had no impact. It really becomes impactful if clients can imagine what they actually can do with data. And I think InSource plays a big role in that, in bringing that to market and showing clients the way to lead what the journey of data can actually bring them.
That's awesome, Niels. We appreciate the plug for InSource Solutions Group as well. And it's very important for us to not only help clients create their unified namespace, but create a namespace that can be trusted by many different stakeholders within the organization. So our organization's coming together, and this partnership has proven to be really, really awesome and quite impactful, not only in select markets, but really all the markets that we work within here at InSource Solutions Group. So thank you for that. Katie, I want to talk a little bit about adoption and trust, because I actually was a naysayer of AI in industrial operations for the longest time. Hey, let's wait until it matures. Let's wait until the AI bias is over and it's no longer a buzzword, but it's a practical application. And from a theory perspective, Timeseer seems remarkable, right? Let's magically identify data anomalies, push updates to your namespace such that you avoid data integrity issues. There has to be an adoption or a trust challenge for many organizations to say, okay, I'm going to trust the Timeseer platform. I'm going to push these updates. I'm going to push these changes to our ecosystem. How do customers overcome the trust challenge, if you will, when adopting a platform like Timeseer?
It's a great question. And we approach that in some phased steps. So we start. Okay, that's a great question. We approach any deployment of Timeseer in different phases. So we start, as Neil said, with a vulnerability assessment, right? So a lot of prospective customers that we talk to may not even think they have data quality problems. Not all the stakeholders, right? Obviously, someone does because they reached out to Timeseer, but a stakeholder at that company may not think they have any data quality issues. So the first step is to prove to them that, yes, look, you do have data quality issues. And then once we've done that, we work with the stakeholders to refine what it is that we're looking for, what data quality issues are meaningful and relevant to what they're using the data for and to the way that their process works, right? Differentiating a process event from a data quality event and really honing in on the things that matter and the things that are going to disrupt what they're doing with their data. So we iterate around the analysis to make sure we're finding those meaningful events. And then similarly, if they implement any kind of automated cleaning, we iterate on that as well within Timeseer before we would make that available for their use outside of Timeseer's application. So I think that collaborative and phased approach helps us really to hone in on what's meaningful and in the process convince them that they can trust then the results coming from Timeseer. And we have a lot of different levers for doing that with the many checks that we can run and also the conditions on which we can filter those checks.
That's excellent. It's not only a fortified solution in the marketplace, it's a systemic approach to getting ahead of those data integrity issues. That's not a one and done fix, but a real time fix over time that ensures not only that your namespace stays accurate in that instance, but in perpetuity, right? That's great.
If I can
Niels, question for you about the industries you serve and perhaps your future outlook on where the digital transformation business is going. What industries are you seeing the greatest need for this type of solution today?
Yes, and that's a really good question. It actually links a little bit to the previous one that I might add to when it comes to basically you're saying, can I trust the company that gives me trust? That's what it comes down to. How do I know this? And a very important piece of that is actually auditability and traceability. And think about it. We do this indeed, linking to your question now, to industries that are usually heavily under some kind of regulations from government or from a pharmaceutical industry, from GMP, for example, and they have to meet these regulations and these standards. And then the auditability part is a big part of that, and that's what we cover in Timeseer back to forth. So basically nothing happens without the possibility to know how it happened, linking back exactly to which algorithms were used, which person did something, what was the raw value. And that is really also a good part of what it, of what brings that trust in the company that should bring trust. And that brings us to the industries. We see the earliest markets that adopted our technology were really the regulatory industries, like water and wastewater utilities, because they have these regulators and auditors that actually come to them and tell them, how did you get to these numbers? You send us a report. How do you get to these numbers? Same thing for pharmaceutical and life sciences industry, where everybody, of course, knows FDA and GMP regulations puts probably even more strenuous things on those companies to do this. And to the broader market, another example, for example, is that every use case around measurement sensors of energy. Think about sustainability initiatives that most large companies with many manufacturing sites around the world have, because they're trying to save costs, for example, or they're trying to meet sustainability targets. If you look at, for example, European Union regulations, they are now intensifying the need to validate that data. Where it used to be, we believe whatever you send us, it's now going to go to reasonable assurance. And that means those companies have to do some kind of a process to say, this is how we got to these numbers, and this is how we can prove that this was it. So that actually broadens it to pretty much most manufacturing companies. But think about also everywhere where there's billing involved. And obviously we spoke about the smart meters, and of course in your household you get this bill and so on. And every month I have a discussion with my wife about how high that bill is and so on. Usually it's correct, but that's not really the point. Think about the industry. If you look at a chemical industry park, I'm from Houston. We have a big park of probably 600 chemical industries. They all sell to each other. So they sell chlorine in pipes. This measured the flow, how much there was. They all use energy, gas, steam that they sell. There's so much transactions going on based on sensors data that they measure on two sides. So that means, you have to make sure that you know who to trust in that sense and what that bill should have been. And we come in there to validate that data and to make that discussion very easy. But all kinds of industries that are linked to that. We do stuff for energy power generation for windmills, where it's about, how much energy can we actually produce, and we make models on top of the sensors that provide that data, and then we use that as an input for trading. Everywhere where there's those links to the regulatory and linked to, well, let's say, direct financial impact for companies, that's really the industries where we can shine. And to be honest, right now we find these use cases across pretty much every vertical.
That's really cool. We oftentimes here at InSource Solutions Group talk about industrial organizations operating within an atmosphere of assumptions. You're assuming your data is of sound quality. Let's not do that. Let's use proven results when we're running our factories, our facilities, our networks, and Timeseer is a platform to do that. Last question, it's for you, Katie, and it's a soft toss, but I think I know your answer, but it's a great question. I want to end with this one. Is Timeseer a nice to have technology, or is it a need to have technology in today's age of industrial operations?
It's a need to have. I mean, you can't use data that you can't trust, right? And when you build on that data, nobody's going to have confidence in new solutions and new initiatives that you're using data for, right? From the get-go, if it's wrong and the insights that are coming from those data applications are wrong. So I think it's a need to have before you launch new initiatives. And yeah.
Great answer. I tend to agree. So to wrap us up today, folks, this has been a really great conversation. What really stands out to me is that organizations have spent so many years investing in simply collecting data. There's a shift happening, and now it's about trusting that data, proving that data is of sound integrity. And without trust, everything that's built on top of it, analytics, AI, reporting, dashboarding, workforce procedures, becomes a risk, right? So this isn't just a technical problem anymore. It's a foundational issue that companies can solve quite easily with partnering with Timeseer. So Niels and Katie, I really appreciate your insights today. They've been immensely helpful. I encourage the guests to the podcast today and all of our viewers, please don't hesitate. Don't be shy. Reach out. We would love to give you all a glimpse of the technology in action and really the solutions making waves through this industry at a rapid pace. And I'm really excited for continued conversation. So with that, Niels, thank you. Katie, thank you. Everybody who is listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us at the Edge of Innovation. We're here to help you. You can reach out to us on our website, insource.solutions, send an email to communications@insourcess.com, or give us a call at 877-467-6872. We hope you'll join us next time for another stone in the path of the digital transformation journey.